Park. Manchester City 3, Everton 0, the scoreline in our first game of the afternoon. Our second game, of course, at 4:30 is Spurs at home to Leeds United. Brian Kerr joins us. Hi, Brian.
Hi, Joe. How's it going?
Yeah, very well. So Michael Carrick's an interim manager until they find the interim manager until the end of the season. I think it's going very well there. Those guys, they know what they're doing. This all makes sense to me. Look, what could go wrong with this plan?
Well, there obviously didn't seem to be a plan if that's how they're operating, which given how much speculation there had been, and rightfully so, given how the results had turned against Solskjaer after the first 4 games of the season. They started quite well. They won the first 3 and drew 1 the first 4 league games, including hammering Leeds. Started very well, won 5-1. And did a really good win against Newcastle as well away. But since then, it's just gone off the rails, and what's one win in the last 7 Premier League games. So, given that, surely there had to be discussions going on in the background. What do we do if it turns very bad? I mean, they obviously they gave Solskjaer a new contract in the summer, and they were hoping that it was going to go very well. And then when the hiccups started coming, they sat tight and were maybe a little bit confident it was going to turn around, but it's just got worse and worse. And now it appears that they didn't have anything up their sleeve in terms of having done any groundwork in identifying a possible replacement for him. I mean, I have to say, Joe, I've always felt, looking at the staff in the last couple of seasons and the developments on that side of it, like Darren Fletcher is now technical director. Kieran McKenna has I don't know what his title is, but he's probably first team coach. Michael Carrick is first team coach. Mike Phelan. Now, I just looked at those and said, yeah, well, Mike Phelan, very experienced guy, was around with Alex, worked in the Premier League with Norwich as a manager in his own right, and he come back as Manchester United former player. And the rest of them, I'm kind of looking at them, young coaches, 2 of them with excellent playing careers at Manchester United, although Carrick played with Spurs, but you'd kind of say he was long enough at Manchester United to say they were steeped in the traditions and the history, or fairly recent history of Manchester United. But I always felt it just looked a little bit lightweight and too easy for me to go that road, rather than getting really highly qualified, experienced people in to back up a youngish manager without massive Premier League experience as a manager, other than his time with Cardiff, where he struggled. I mean, it wasn't his fault that Cardiff went down. It was a bit of a mess, I think, at the time. But given that, I just felt it was a bit too cosy. And I have said, watching some of the matches on the TV this year and doing some of the analysis for Virgin, looking at it, I've seen little conferences when things are not going well, conferences with Michael Carrick and Kieran McKenna and Ole. And no sign of Mike Phelan, although he was supposed to be the assistant manager, and just didn't look right to me. So now it seems like there's no plan. And Michael Carrick, in you go. You do the job now. A few handy matches coming up. See how you get on with them. Villarreal midweek, and then Chelsea and Arsenal. Isn't it Arsenal Chelsea that order?
Chelsea
and then Arsenal. And see how you get on with that. Meanwhile, in the background, we do something that we should have been doing over the last few months. That's how it looks to me.
Generally, in a situation like this, there's an interim manager until we appoint an actual manager. Manchester United are going for an interim until we appoint an interim. What's your read on what they're up to here?
My reading on it is that it was all very rushed, like that there hasn't been deep discussions about what are we going to do next, as I've kind of said earlier. And it sounds a bit like, well, we better put out a statement and say something, but it might not really be the truth. Where are options? Like, okay, Michael Carrick's there, let him get on with it, walk away. But it sounds like they're almost trying to give themselves a bit of time, and that they know that there's not, that they've suddenly discovered that there's nobody available that might be prepared to take the job on now immediately. And the discussion will go on about should they have gone for Conte a few weeks ago and whatever, and now you're looking at Zidane's available, so he'll be the favourite. because he hasn't got a job at the moment, or did they go for someone else, or there's Brendan Rodgers in the running, and there might be a bit of more hope on that if he was the one they wanted, given Brendan Rodgers' comments after the Leicester match yesterday, when he said he was disappointed by the reaction of the crowd at half-time and after-match. You can understand. It's not sort of thing he usually says to goad the fans of the club he's managing. He normally plays that one very well and bats very well on it. But it just... And I'm sure it must have galled him a little bit that happened, because it's only a few months since they won the cup and had a great season last season and the season before, be it they finished up 5th. But still, for them to have actually won a trophy last year, when we're talking about Manchester United now not winning trophies, it must have been a bit going for. So maybe Rodgers might be the one that they could pinch, or Pochettino, Ten Hag. It doesn't seem like there was any real big thought put into what happens next.
And Gary Neville, I mean, even after the Liverpool and Manchester City results, one of the reasons he said Solskjaer would not be sacked is that it was his information that nobody at the club predicted things would ever get this bad this season. They felt pretty good about things going into the season, so they hadn't done any due diligence on a potential replacement, which is understandable to a point. But on the current situation...
But somebody, Joe, had to be doing that. Now,
I presume from the Liverpool game...
He also mentioned that they'd done a vast amount of recruitment. Loads and loads of people have come into the club in various roles on the football side of it. And surely if that was the case, one of those guys, whoever he was, must have been had the idea, well, I should think about what happens, or if so I don't accept that one. But go on.
But just the bizarreness of this now. So Carrick's going to take charge until they find an interim manager to the end of the season, is what they're saying. What calibre of manager are they going to attract who'll say, yeah, I'll be your lame duck odd interim manager to the end of the season, no problem, I'll do that? So like a dreadful proposition. This isn't March or April where there's 4 or 5 games left. I mean, there's half the season left. Why don't they just try and appoint a manager and say to Carrick, look, keep the show on the road for the next 2-3 weeks tops. We will get someone. We'll get someone good. This business of spending the next 2-3 weeks frantically trying to find the right interim manager is just bizarre.
It is bizarre. And if you think about it, go back to how Ole got the job. He got the job when it was turning too sour with Mourinho, and that's 2 years and 11 months ago. It's a similar time in the season, right? And he was given the job on a temporary basis, or interim, or whatever they called it at the time. And because the results turned and the atmosphere turned in a positive way, and everybody seemed to be a lot happier after there seemed to be a bit of a toxicity around Mourinho's time around the club. So he eventually got the job. So yeah, it's quite a similar scene, isn't it? Really, to them.
I'd say they're half hoping Carrick doesn't do too bloody well.
But they need him to start doing well, because the gap between them and the top 4 is getting bigger. I mean, there's plenty of time to rescue it, Joe, and you know, it's not critical at the moment. But 17 points in 12 games, like, it's only that's less than half the points you could have.
Get. But doesn't that strengthen the argument? Like Chelsea last year getting Tuchel, there's loads of time left. Get your manager in. This interim business.
I agree with you. I agree with you totally. But if you're going to do that, you had to think about it a little bit in advance of suddenly today at 10:30 we put out a statement in the morning because we lost to Watford. I mean, surely they had to be thinking about it after they lost 5-0 to Liverpool, after they lost 2-0 to City. So after they lost 4-2 to Leicester, you know, they had to be thinking as well, and saying, so what did we do? So that plan was, Michael Carrick's a great bloke. He's a great bloke in the back. He's, assistant manager. He's been great with the underage teams. He's come through. was that the one? And if that was the case, it's not very good, because Michael Carrick has no experience at that level of being the manager, and that's what Manchester United required. They've had David Moyes, they've had Louis van Gaal, they had Giggs for a little while in between them. They've had Jose Mourinho, all different managers in their different ways. David Moyes, a traditionalist in the Ferguson molds. Van Gaal, great history in the game of success at international and club 11, and then Mourinho, who goes around, kicks arses, and initially has everyone smile, and then they all all turn sour, but usually wins trophies. So they've had all those guys. Now they've had one of their own. Now they're going to go to another one of, we just promote one of the players, former players. It's bizarre.
Yeah. I know. I saw Sky Sports reporting there. Rob Dawson said Ronaldo wants Luis Enrique, and like, if you're head in your hands with this kind of carry on, like what Ronaldo wants should not come into it whatsoever.
That sounds a good story by Sky, though.
Well, listen, and so I guess the last question is, the issue for Manchester United here is, what calibre of manager is going to be attracted to the position of interim to the end of this season?
I'm sure there'd be lots of guys that take it if they were offered it. I'm sure they're not paying, two and six a week.
But like a Zidane or a Brendan Rodgers, like a top manager is not going to go for this.
Well, Rodgers not going to leave Leicester for a temporary job. Pochettino is not going to leave PSG for an 8-month contract, but he might leave PSG if he's offered a 4-year contract, knowing that PSG generally sack the manager at the end of the season if they don't win the Champions League. Hence Tuchel was available, and Chelsea snapped them up and doing their business as they do. Zidane might look at it and say, yeah, I'd have a go at that gig. I was in the madhouse at Real Madrid. It can't be as mad as that. I know a couple of players. I work with Varane, I work with Ronaldo. I know a lot of the rest of them. Decent squad of players, great club, big club. Well run in certain ways, you would think, in comparison to Real Madrid, and he might think that's if they really want him, if they evaluate his career and decide he's the right one for them. So would Ten Hag leave Ajax at the moment for Manchester United? That's an interesting one. Maybe he would if they go about it the right way and they're prepared to pay serious compensation, which shouldn't be any bother to them. It seems they're going to have to pay Solskjaer a lot of money because he only signed a contract in the summer.
Yeah, 7.5 million today as he waved goodbye at Carrington. So that's where we are. We will turn our attention to matters at hand. I mean, it's a case of what could have been for Manchester United. Conte.
They could have waited, Joe, for Ranieri for a while longer.
Get him in a few weeks.
And he showed them yesterday what a new manager can do when a team that are struggling.
And probably Pearl Watford, they were pretty good as well. But
that's my point. It's not a word about Watford.
No.
And they were brilliant yesterday.
I will let you guys take it away. So it's our live game this afternoon. It's Spurs against Leeds United. Brian Kerr obviously on duty, and Jessica Farry is on commentary. Jess.